Hi everyone, Theme Park Tracker here with a very interesting park update for Six Flags Magic Mountain. In the last update, we talked about rumors going around for the next new ride at the park, and those rumors led over to Tidal Wave. The rumor at the time was that a mock ride's power splash was going to replace that and a few other surrounding structures. Now, that sounds like an excellent idea, replacing the old Tidal Wave attraction, which is only open for less than half the year, and the biggest complaint is you don't even get wet on the ride. Standing on the bridge after you get off is the only place where you'll get drenched. On hot and busy days, Tidal Wave has the shortest line out of the 3 water rides in the park, the other 2 being Jetstream and Roaring Rapids. I do think it has to do with the short layout of the ride, and many local guests now know but that you don't get wet on it. Having something like a power splash in its place would be a huge thrill factor and something the park desperately needs in its water ride lineup. The park can even call it a coaster and officially make it the 20th coaster in the park, which was supposed to be West Coast Racers, but the park had no choice but to remove Green Lantern First Flight due to legal issues. Speaking of Green Lantern, right in front of it was some construction going on, and a day before this was filmed, they were digging stuff up in front. They had the survey tripod up and a mini excavator. What they were digging up the other day has now been covered up with concrete. It was probably to access something underneath it. Now, this doesn't mean a new ride isn't on the horizon, as there is work going on over by Tidal Wave, which we'll get to in a bit. I have a feeling this area will open up again after this is all cleaned up and the concrete dried up. If this area was truly going to close down for the coming months, they would have put up the solid construction walls instead of the temporary barriers, and they would have cleared out the cash registers and machines from the roasted corn and frozen lemonade locations. Only time will tell what happens here, but the possibility of it being related to a new attraction I think are still very high. The surveying tools out the other day weren't just to dig that square hole in the ground. This has to be the very beginning stages of planning for the new attraction coming to the park in 2021. Or it could be for something entirely different. Now I want to talk about some markers that are seen around Tidal Wave. There are some that you'll see near the exit in a bit, but there was also one by the Boardwalk Games in front of Crazanity. I'm not sure if this is related to the same project, but it was strange seeing this lone marker over here. Maybe there are plans to extend this project way out here, past where this green fence is that goes around the perimeter for the Tidal Wave queue. But it doesn't really add up to the rumors that we've been hearing. We'll have to keep a close eye out on these markers. As we learned with West Coast Racers, they are always moving and adding them throughout the site. Heading over to Tidal Wave, the entire exit hub of the ride is blocked off by barricades. The tables to the right for the Ace of Clubs dining location are getting ripped out along with the concrete they were bolted down to. Part of the seating area is still open, which I found really interesting as the eating area and construction zone is separated by this black fence. I'm not sure what's going on here and why half of it remains open, but it all might be related to the new attraction going on. They also got rid of the shade structure that was covering some of the tables here. You can see where they ripped it out by looking at the side of the Ace building, and there's all these holes here from the wooden frame that was attached. On the ground, there's markers everywhere, especially around the planters in front of Riddler's Revenge, which could be for one of the towers of the Power Splash models. It's crazy to think that another project is starting in the park when they still aren't done with the West Coast Racers area, mainly just the go-karts. I do wonder which side they're going to put the station on, if it's a Power Splash or RMC Raptor or any other ride. Whatever side it's on, they're both themed to DC Comics, and it'd probably be named to Aquaman if it's a water coaster. But I'd love if they put a walkway along the splash zone that would connect the dead end where Batman is and the other side with Justice League. Of course, doing this would reduce the amount of guests that walk by the Boardwalk Games, rides, and food locations along that area, like Crazanity. So now, let's talk about the space for this new attraction. Here is an overview of the areas in question. It doesn't look like anything could fit here other than a 4D free spin, but if you take out Tidal Wave, some trees, the Green Lantern station, and a bit of the walkway, then you have a decent amount of space for a new ride. Let's use the mock Power Splash as an example. This is the model from the park from Wallaby, Belgium called Pulsar. Here's the first scenario in which the ride could be placed in a straight line right up against the warehouse building behind the Boardwalk Games. I outlined in red where the 2 towers for the Power Splash coaster end. It's a pretty long layout lengthwise, and it seems like it would take up the same space that Batman would. Another possibility is placing the ride diagonally like this. So now the two towers are across from Jammin' Bumpers and Batman. This layout seems like it would make more sense, but the first way I had it lines up with where the markers were sprayed onto the ground near the exit to Tidal Wave. So I think the first layout is much more realistic. That leaves the question of the splash zone for the ride. That spot in between the warehouse and Riddler's Revenge is tight, and I know the waves on Pulsar go well beyond the pool and onto the walkways. I'm sure things will be modified and the splash slightly reduced depending on what they do, but we have to consider the looping model the park is rumored to get. Mock Rides recently announced a version of the Power Splash with a loop on it, meaning the length portion of the layout would have to increase even further than what is being compared here. This park likes to break records, and I can see them billing this as the first water coaster with a loop. Now, this is just the Power Splash rumors. I've also heard many reports of an RMC Raptor going here, which also makes a lot of sense due to the compact nature of that coaster model. Only time will tell what will happen to this area, and it's all very exciting to witness and talk about these rumors. Again, this whole video is only speculation and based off rumors. It doesn't mean all this construction is actually for a new ride in 2021. Nothing is official until the park announces it, and that's usually towards the end of August every year. We aren't getting any new rides for the 2020 year, but the big 50th anniversary for the park is next year, so I think that's when we should hear some big news. We still have work being done over at West Coast Racers, like some new decorations going up here and there, and the grand reopening of the go-karts should be really soon. Well, that just about does it for this update. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe to the channel for more updates on Six Flags Magic Mountain and more from other local Southern California theme parks.